The Italian submarine Luigi Torelli raced across the Atlantic surface, her crew confident in the night's protection. Enemy escorts were blind in these waters. In 1943, surface submarines were still invisible to radar at close range. The submarine owned the night. Out of nowhere, a searing white flash sundered the starless sky with the power of 750,000 headlights. The crew on watch froze, stunned, as the Atlantic night gave way to a blinding day. A white glare swept across the deck, piercing the waves and scalding their vision. It was as if the ocean itself had caught fire. The captain's eyes adjusted just in time to make out something tumbling from within the blinding glare. As soon as the dark shadows touched the deck, fireballs erupted. His ship convulsed. Suddenly, the most effective weapon against an Axis submarine was light. By 1939, England was engulfed in war, and Britain's survival depended on the Atlantic. Every ton of food, fuel, and ammunition had to cross it. Yet the most significant threat on those waters had become the night itself, the most powerful ally of a predator like the German U-boat. Admiral Karl Dönitz, aware that the Kriegsmarine was far smaller than the Royal Navy, ordered these submarines to instead strangle Britain's supply lines by sinking merchant ships faster than they could be replaced. On the surface, U-boats could outrun most escort vessels, surging at up to 18 knots, while Allied sonar, ASDIC, struggled to detect submerged submarines. At night, they vanished entirely. A handful of submarines could strike entire convoys with impunity. The vast mid-Atlantic black gap lay beyond the reach of aircraft, leaving merchantmen exposed and alone. The early Battle of the Atlantic offered cruel proof of this power. Convoy SC-7 in October 1940 was slaughtered over several nights. 12 U-boats attacked in waves, sinking nearly 20 merchant ships while British escorts struggled to react. In March 1941, U-boat stalking HX-112 picked off stragglers one by one. While some British escorts fought back and even sank a few submarines, the majority of the convoy remained at their mercy. Daylight brought a semblance of safety for Britain, with air patrols scouring the shipping lanes and forcing U-boats to dive. But the Atlantic was simply too big for complete coverage. U-boats could shadow convoys unseen for hours, waiting for the right moment to ambush. Over 4 million tons of Allied ships had been lost to the ocean's depths by 1941. Tankers, troop ships, and freighters were all viable targets. Survivors held on to lifeboats or drifted on rafts in the cold, dark sea, hearing the distant hum of a U-boat's diesel engine fade away. Each ship lost meant fewer Spitfires in the air, fewer Sherman tanks on the front lines, and less food reaching the people back in Britain. The Allies refused to cede the Atlantic entirely. Escort ships, destroyers, corvettes, and armed trawlers raced to shield convoys from the lurking U-boats. Depth charges plunged into the Atlantic, exploding with violent shockwaves that could buckle a submarine's hull or force it to the surface. When a U-boat's conning tower broke the waves, guns roared from the escorts, allowing destroyers to punish the vessel that had threatened so many lives. In February 1941, HMS Broadwater sank U-83 with a coordinated depth charge attack. A month later, HMS Walker drove U-100 to the surface and pounded it with deck guns. Sadly, escorts were scarce. Many convoys crossed the vast Atlantic with little protection, leaving merchant ships vulnerable to the ever-watchful Germans. Technology offered a glimmer of hope. The air-to-surface vessel radar, ASV Mark II, could detect surfaced U-boats from miles away. However, at close range, the sea's surface created a clutter zone that blinded the radar, forcing pilots to search by eye. Humphrey de Vere Lee was a young pilot during World War I. After the war, Lee resigned his commission and stepped away from military life. When World War II broke out, Lee rejoined the Royal Air Force as wing commander, determined to put his knack for practical solutions to use. While many of his peers chased flashy inventions to make a name for themselves, Lee stuck to what worked: hands-on fixes instead of complicated theories or high-tech experiments. He frequently modified aircraft in the field, adjusted bomb racks and flare deployment systems for anti-submarine patrols, and tested new night attack patterns with crews. Posted to Coastal Command, the RAF's frontline defense against the U-boat menace in the Atlantic, Lee soon confronted one of the war's most stubborn problems: nighttime. Lee saw countless patrol crews returning from their sorties with the same grim story to tell. Radar screens glowed with promising blips, finding contacts miles away, even in pitch-black darkness. Yet once pilots closed in, those tiny radar contacts became fundamentally invisible. As crews strained their eyes against the night and spotted the dark silhouette of a submarine, it was often too late. The U-boat had already dived under the surface. The ocean itself became the enemy's shield, allowing them to close in on convoys virtually unopposed, able to work at the speeds they so desired without any fear of being countered. Radar could detect U-boats from miles away, but up close it was useless. In the crucial moments when submarines surfaced under the cover of night, Allied pilots and crews were effectively blind. Lee's mind raced with possibilities. Then it hit him in a flash. The answer wasn't more radar. It was light. The brightest light possible. They could flood the ocean with a brilliant beam, blinding the enemy and buying precious seconds pilots needed to strike. Lee grabbed pencil and paper, sketching a concept that seemed almost too daring to be real. A high-intensity searchlight mounted beneath the wing of an aircraft, operated directly from the cockpit so the pilot could switch it on at the critical moment. Lee was building a massive 24-inch carbon arc lamp designed to shine with an incredible 22 million candela, the combined brightness of thousands of car headlights focused into a single beam. He developed the now called Lee light entirely on his own, in secret and without official sanction. Even the Air Ministry was unaware of its existence until he revealed a completed prototype. In March 1941, he affixed it to a Vickers Wellington DWI, a model already equipped with the heavy-duty generator used for anti-magnetic mining. This prototype proved the concept sound and practical. The idea faced stiff resistance from the higher-ups. For starters, it seemed deceptively simple. Too simple, perhaps. RAF officials dismissed his invention as impractical, overly heavy, and a potential hazard to pilots. Initially, the Air Ministry favored the turbine light system, a more conventional 2.7 million candela searchlight that needed an accompanying fighter to engage illuminated targets. Crucially, Lee secured the support of Sir Frederick Bowhill, Coastal Command's commander-in-chief, who recognized the potential. With his backing, the RAF gradually decided to give Lee a chance, given that he conducted repeated ground and flight tests. For the demonstrations, one of Lee's most significant challenges was fitting such a powerful, heavy device onto a plane. On Wellingtons, the searchlight was mounted in an underturret, weighing about 1,100 pounds. This prototype version generated intense heat, required substantial electrical power, and threatened the aircraft's aerodynamics. To keep the bomber fast and streamlined, engineers built the light into a retractable mount. It stayed hidden during flight, then swung down into position when needed. Before the Lee light ever took flight, it went through steady, thorough testing on the ground. Technicians fixed it in place and ran it for long stretches to check how it dealt with heat, vibrations, and electrical surges. They measured how well the beam focused and how bright it was by shining it on targets at different distances, often in rain, fog, or dusty conditions, to simulate the challenges it would face over the ocean. The team didn't move on to mock-up installations on parked aircraft until the light proved it could run for hours without overheating or shorting out. On the planes, they tested for any interference with engines, wiring, or flight controls. Finally, mechanics carefully adjusted the retractable housing, making sure it swung smoothly into place without the risk of jamming. Then came the first night flights. It was early June 1942, and 172 Squadron, newly formed at RAF Chivnor, prepared its Lee light-equipped Vickers Wellington 8 bombers for their inaugural combat patrols. Among them was Wellington Coded F, piloted by squadron leader Jefferson H. Greswell. Under a starless sky, the Wellington took off. Inside, the crew watched the ASV Mark II radar screen with impatience. Suddenly, a faint green blip appeared, an Italian submarine, the Luigi Torelli, crossing the Bay of Biscay, about 70 miles off the Spanish coast. As they closed in, the darkness remained as inscrutable as ever. They could make out no shape, nor hear a hint of the vessel ahead. Then came the signal, and the Lee light, tucked under the Wellington's belly, swung into position. With a quiet click, a sudden pillar of light tore through the night. Darkness gave way instantly, revealing the submarine in sharp detail, deck and conning tower outlined against the sea. Crew members on the bridge squinted into the glare. The U-boat had nowhere to hide. The darkness that once cloaked it now worked against it like a spotlight on stage. Captain Graswell's crew wasted no time. The bomber shuddered as the navigator counted down the approach. At the last moment, the pilot released 4 depth charges. The explosions tore through the calm water with powerful blasts. The U-boat jolted violently, its hull creaking under the attack, engines coughing and stalling. Inside, the crew scrambled to check the damage. The sudden shock had knocked out key systems. The submarine now sat still on the surface, fully exposed and helpless. The captain made the desperate decision to limp toward neutral Spanish waters. Though badly damaged, the submarine managed to reach the port of Aviles. Despite surviving the ordeal, Luigi Torelli's catastrophe brought to light the devastating effectiveness of Lee's invention. It proved, beyond any doubt, that the night no longer belonged to the U-boats. U-boats began vanishing under circumstances that left their commanders baffled. Submarines that had surfaced safely for decades were suddenly being caught in the open, attacked, and sometimes destroyed at night. Many German captains assumed these losses were the result of simple misfortune, a break in the clouds revealing them to moonlight, or perhaps a chance encounter with an Allied searchlight. The notion that enemy aircraft could consistently locate and strike a submarine under the cover of darkness seemed absurd. As the months passed, a pattern began to emerge. Reports from crews that survived the attacks described depth charge hits being preceded by a sudden beam of light. It came from nowhere, appearing instantly and vanishing just as quickly. The Kriegsmarine Signals Intelligence Service, always alert to new Allied technologies, began to suspect the British had developed an entirely new weapon, a powerful airborne searchlight linked with radar that allowed aircraft to close in undetected and light U-boats at close range. These suspicions reached BDU, the U-boat High Command, and the scale of the threat began to sink in. By late 1942, German naval staff reports confirmed that the Allies were indeed employing a specialized night-fighting system, though the specifics, its size, range, and operational mechanics remained unknown. As radar tactics, paired with the Lee light, started tipping the balance against U-boats, the Germans quickly realized they had to adapt, or risk even heavier losses. The U-boat crews quickly adapted, developing the METOX radar detector, a clever device designed to pick up the faint electronic signals emitted by Allied radars. Officially called the FUMB-1 METOX, the detector was about the size of a large suitcase and combined a radio receiver with a set of directional antennae, usually mounted on the conning tower. Its design allowed crews to detect approaching aircraft before they were visible, giving them precious time to dive or take evasive action. Operating in the 180 to 220 MHz range used by the ASV Mark II, the METOX could detect radar pulses from up to 18 miles away, translating them into audible beeps in the submarine's control room. METOX also exploited the radar's behavior at shorter ranges. When operators switched from a 36-mile to a 9-mile scale, the pulse repetition frequency doubled. If the beep suddenly sped up, it signaled the sub had been detected and was in immediate danger. At this critical moment, when the aircraft was close enough to illuminate the sub with the Lee light, the U-boat was often already plunging beneath the waves, escaping visual detection and attack. As a bonus, METOX provided warnings even during daylight, giving crews advance notice well beyond visual range. The METOX also had the advantage of operating as a passive receiver. It didn't send out any signals, making it hard for the Allies to spot. Its rotating directional antennas helped crews determine the origin of incoming radar pulses, providing important clues about the location of enemy aircraft. However, the device's sensitivity could sometimes lead to false alarms caused by natural or man-made radio interference. Such false alarms risked either causing unnecessary dives, wasting precious battery and air, or hesitation, which Lee light-equipped aircraft could exploit to close in and attack. This set off a non-stop game of cat and mouse between the two sides. The Allies rushed to change their radar frequencies and limit signal use, attempting to deceive the METOX detectors. Meanwhile, the Germans responded by improving their equipment, making the receivers more sensitive and able to pick up signals from farther away. A key part of this escalation was the introduction in mid-1943 of the nacelle-type Lee light. This stronger, more flexible searchlight was built for long-range aircraft like the Catalinas and Liberators, helping crews patrol vast stretches of ocean more effectively. This model featured a 20-inch carbon arc lamp housed in a 32-inch diameter nacelle slung beneath the wing, hanging from the bomb racks, all packed in a system weighing roughly 870 pounds. Electric controls allowed the crew to deploy the light swiftly, with an intense beam reaching up to 90 million candelas without the spreading lens, or about 17 million with it, like the combined glow of a stadium full of floodlights zeroed in on a single patch of sea. Compared to earlier models, the nacelle light's brighter, more reliable illumination allowed the Liberator crew to spot and track the target from farther away and react faster. This meant the aircraft could hold the searchlight on the submarine longer during the attack run without overheating or risking system failure, an impossible feat with the older turret system. Even if the crew tried to dive, the aircraft had seconds to strike, turning fleeting sightings into confirmed victories. Simple as it was, the idea of sweeping a blinding beam across the ocean had its drawbacks. The sudden glare of the lee light could dazzle the attacking crew just as easily as the U-boat, forcing pilots and gunners to react quickly. The effect, called flash blindness, could briefly disorient the crew, making it harder to aim and attack surfaced U-boats at night. In those crucial seconds, U-boats sometimes had a chance to dive and slip away before the strike could be completed. The lee light packed an incredible punch, but it came with trade-offs. Drawing that much power strained an aircraft's electrical systems, which meant crews could only keep it on for short bursts. And the heat it gave off wasn't just uncomfortable, it could warp the airframe or even spark a fire if things went wrong. The nacelle-type lee light specifically required robust electrical support to operate its candela beam. Due to this strain, even though it could sustain longer bursts compared to its older model, crews used the light sparingly, firing brief, intense bursts rather than prolonged illumination to conserve energy and avoid overloading the aircraft systems. Moreover, the moment it lit up, every eye on a U-boat knew exactly where the plane was. Crews would instantly swing their anti-aircraft guns skyward, trying to drive it off before it could attack. At the same time, captains sometimes used aggressive evasive maneuvers, such as sudden dives combined with sharp course changes, to shake off the attackers. The intense illumination made it easier for the U-boat to visually track the plane's position, enabling advanced escape maneuvers. In rare cases, U-boats coordinated with nearby vessels or air units for mutual defense, creating overlapping zones of fire to deter or disrupt the attackers. The breaking point came in May 1943, a month the Kriegsmarine christened as Black May. Allied technology and tactics had evolved into a lethal net for the submarines. Escort carriers brought air cover deep into the mid-Atlantic gap. Long-range patrol aircraft, armed with radar and lee lights, now hunted regularly at night. High-frequency direction finding tracked radio transmissions, and improved depth charges punished any submarine that dared linger near a convoy for too long. For the first time in the war, U-boat losses outpaced Germany's ability to replace them. New Type 7 boats, rushed from the yards, often failed to return from their maiden patrols. Veteran crews were lost, draining the Kriegsmarine of its most skilled hunters. Admiral Karl Dönitz, faced with a strategic disaster, had little choice. On May 24th, he issued the order to withdraw the bulk of his U-boats from the North Atlantic to regroup, conceding that the Allies had won control of the convoy routes. Submarine attacks continued in other theaters, as well as sporadic North Atlantic patrols. Still, the days when German submarines could roam freely, striking convoys at will, were over. In the span of just 31 days, the U-boat arm suffered catastrophic losses. 43 submarines destroyed, roughly a quarter of Germany's operational fleet at the time. Through 1943, Lee watched as his invention tilted the battle in the Allies' favor. But even a diminished U-boat fleet was a danger. They adapted their tactics to avoid the lethal glare of the lee light, staying submerged for longer periods and surfacing only briefly to recharge their batteries. By doing so, they narrowed the moments when the powerful searchlight might catch them exposed. Then, out of pure desperation, they came up with a method to keep prowling the seas while avoiding the light: the snorkel. The snorkel was a thin, retractable pipe that let submarines run their diesel engines while staying just under the surface. It pulled in fresh air and pushed out exhaust without the sub having to fully surface and risk being seen. Early snorkel iterations were far from perfect. Leaks, mechanical failures, and limited reliability made it a tricky piece of equipment. Still, by mid-1944, it was becoming more widespread. With it attached, submarines could run invisibly for hours, maintaining battery power and remaining submerged during daylight and night. This significantly narrowed the window of time that Allied aircraft had to spot them, let alone blind them. Despite its brilliance, the snorkel was not foolproof. Veteran aircrews soon learned to detect the faint shimmer of masts and the subtle ripples they left behind. Allied pressure continued to push U-boats deeper and deeper. The night hunter's reign was slipping away, and Lee knew the war was entering its final, crucial phase. From that summer onward, U-boat sinking stayed high, and losses of merchant ships dropped significantly. Although submarines kept fighting until Germany surrendered in May 1945, they never regained the upper hand. At the height of the war, over 119 Wellingtons of Coastal Command carried Lee's weaponized Sun slung beneath the wing of an aircraft. Dozens of U-boats had been sunk or damaged during the Battle of the Atlantic. Victories that had once been rare in the dark nearly tripled, as RAF aircraft used the light to rip the cover from the enemy. When the war ended in 1945, the seas grew quieter, and the need for such massive illumination began to fade. The Lee Light continued to fly on Shackletons for night patrols, training, and the occasional Cold War contingency. Squadrons at RAF bases such as Ballykelly and St. Ival conducted simulated night attacks, perfecting coordination between radio operators, pilots, and gunners. By the 1950s and 60s, the Lee Light no longer led hunts across the Atlantic. It became a living link between the desperate battles of the past and the cautious strategies of the Cold War. Lee watched as the weapon that had once been the spearhead of the hunt became a tool for exercises and experiments. Eventually, with its wartime purpose slipping into history, he stepped away from service. For his development of a massive light capable of illuminating the sea at night, Lee was appointed an officer of the Order of the British Empire. The Lee Light's successors took its breakthrough idea further by combining more advanced searchlights with improved radar and infrared tech. While the original used powerful carbon arc lamps that shone up to 90 million candelas of visible light, Cold War and modern systems relied on quieter, low-profile methods to spot targets more accurately, without giving away their own position. Magnetic anomaly detectors, which came into use in the early Cold War, could sense tiny changes in the Earth's magnetic field caused by a submarine's metal hull. This allows patrol planes to detect submarines underwater without using lights or revealing their location. Low-level TV cameras and forward-looking infrared systems let crews detect heat signatures in darkness or bad weather without using bright spotlights. Modern units, like the AN/AAQ-13 and AN/AAQ-28, can sense heat from miles away and often integrate with radar for precise targeting. Yet the spirit of Humphrey de Vere Lee's invention remains alive. Today, maritime patrol aircraft, like the Boeing P-8 Poseidon, carry high-intensity searchlights capable of emitting several million candelas, used primarily for search and rescue operations. Similarly, the MH-60R Seahawk helicopter spotlight pierces through fog, darkness, and storms, guiding rescue teams and marking vessels. These modern beams, though technologically advanced, trace their lineage to this simple, brilliant idea that once turned night into day.